Today we are going to be taking a pretty deep dive into the case of the being photographed at Ilkley Moor. As I mentioned, this gained worldwide popularity, and you can find a lot about it online. There are many articles written about the Ilkley Moor incident. Today, we are going to be looking at one written in the UFO Universe magazine winter edition of 1989. So 2 years after this incident happened, here is a widespread write-up in this edition of this magazine. This is the definitive sort of article written by Peter Howe, I believe it's pronounced. And the subheadline reads, "It is very rare that the occupants of a UFO photographed. This may be the only photo of its kind known to exist." And underneath it says, "Alien," in quotes, "abduction on Ilkley Moor, a scientific inquiry." So this gentleman that goes by the name Philip Spencer, potentially a pseudonym, not only allows himself to be looked into, but also I think does a subsequent hypnotic regression. And out of that regression, I think some of the juiciest details of this case emerge. But let's begin our read-through. Ooh, I love this type of stuff. This is it. Fired up. Dude, what time is it? It's 8:15 in the morning. I got here like 7:30. I'm fired up. I couldn't wait for this episode. All right, here we go. This thing happened to me early on December 1st, 1987. It was still dark and overcast when I set off from home around 7:15 in the morning to cross the moors of East Morton, the village where my father-in-law lives. I carried my camera and compass with me. I was hoping to take some shots of Ilkley, looking down at the town from the moor tops. The compass was a safeguard. Even though I had made the 5-mile journey several times, it's surprisingly easy to get disoriented and lost up there, especially if the weather is bad. Rather than follow the established path, I took the shorter, though more arduous route, up the front of the steep hillside. As the ground started to level out, I picked up a path which ran alongside a stand of trees. I was vaguely aware of a humming sound, but I thought this was due to an aircraft hidden by the overcast sky. Then, something caught my eye. I stopped and turned, looking into the huge hollow scooped out of the top of the hill. About 30 feet away, I saw what I can only describe as a small green creature moving quickly away from me. I thought, "What's that?" and shouted, "Hey!" When it was about 40 to 50 feet away, it turned and seemed to be waving me off. I quickly brought up my camera and took a photograph. Then, I don't know why exactly, I jumped down the embankment and chased after it. Well, okay. I like the cut of his jib. I'll be honest. Instinctively takes a photo. Most people would be too shell-shocked, or, you hear a lot of accounts of like, I didn't even think about grabbing my camera. This guy did. And not only that, he's like, "Get back here." I like the idea also of the alien just waving him off, being like, no, stop, go away. Maybe he was up to no good. Who knows? It didn't walk as much as shambled, but nevertheless moved much more quickly than a person would. I followed it around an outcropping where it had disappeared. There was a deeper hollow and an even bigger surprise. I saw what I can only describe as a large object, just like two silver saucers stuck together edge to edge. Some sort of a box sticking out of the top was descending into the object. The humming sound I had previously heard became quite loud, and the saucer shot straight up into the clouds. I was too nervous to continue, and came back down off the moors and back to Ilkley. I couldn't understand it. The shops were open, and the town hall clock said it was 10 o'clock. It should only have been about 8:15. That's wild. It is 8:20. We started reading this at 8:15. How wild. That clock's still an hour behind, so don't mind that. Or an hour ahead. Was I going mad? Then I remembered the photograph. There was a place in Ilkley which operated a 1-hour developing service. I caught the next bus and walked a short distance to the shop, taking a couple shots as I went. I suppose I felt guilty at wasting so much film until I realized the futility of it. I returned to the shop later, and there it was. The quality was poor, but there was no doubt I had captured on film what I had seen with my own eyes. Incredible. Folks, what a story. As a photographer, I've got my own little Nikon here. I just started doing film photography. I got a little FM2, bought it in Japan. And I totally understand the need to want to fill up a roll, because why would you have a roll developed if it wasn't finished? Sometimes you got 3-4 photos left, you snap them off, whatever it is. Some could turn out to be gold. So I get that from a photography standpoint. It's a fun detail. And here we go. The above account, compiled from letters and recorded interviews, was made by a former police officer. Without doubt, in some quarters, the story will raise a few chuckles, and no wonder why. The UFO problem nearly always receives bad press. This is not surprising either. The subject attracts more than its fair share of fantasy-prone individuals who want to believe in invaders from outer space, and organized cultists who see every aircraft landing light and bright star as a spaceship from Venus or Alpha Centauri. These people are fodder to the journalists for the naive Space Invaders headlines. 1989. The more things change, the more they stay the same. The UFO subject is not like that. Let me tell you how it is. When the reports have been sifted and 90% of them have been identified as either hoaxes, misidentified weather balloons, aircraft landing lights, or bright celestial bodies, there remains a residue of reports for which there is no known mundane cause. Within the residue, there is a growing body of experiences very similar to the one narrated above. This type of close encounter is surfaced all over the world from many different cultures, involving recipients from all walks of life, including housewives, writers, police officers, professors, psychologists, farmers, and many more. Most of these people are highly embarrassed and anxious that their true identities not be released to the general public, although some have risked the disbelief and ridicule and come out into the open. The man whose story we are concerned with here hopes to rejoin the police force at some future date, so as chairman of the Manchester UFO Research Association, MUFORA, I respected his plea for anonymity. Because of this, I shall call him Philip Spencer. Okay, so it is a pseudonym. And what's so interesting is that there are so many police officers. I can think of Herbert Schirmer being one. I can also think of, I read a UFO magazine Lonnie Zamora is another one, but there was a UFO magazine that had I think up to 20 on the record police officers that had sightings with either UFOs or beings. Even the Metal Man, this is another famous UFO picture that we'll eventually dive down into. At first it might seem like a guy in a hazmat suit or something of the like, but he swears that he chased this thing down in his police car at 35 miles an hour and couldn't keep up with it. But regardless, that man was also a police officer. So maybe something about police officers either attracting the phenomenon or something about the bravery of these police officers and the idea that their words can be sort of taken more seriously allows them to come forward. So how many people are not coming forward with these stories is the question. I digress. There was much more to Philip Spencer's story than the mere sighting of some distant object. Philip offered us some tangible evidence to back up his claims, and the story itself proved to be much more comprehensive than his initial account indicated. What makes Philip's story so different to other close encounter witnesses is that Philip has a photograph which allegedly shows the green creature he met on Ilkley Moor. British researchers have long postulated that close encounter experiences were totally subjective, some kind of hitherto undetected mechanism of the mind. But here, we had a hallucination, which could be photographed. Or did we? Was the entire affair a hoax? We first received notification of the incident when the witness wrote to paranormal researcher and reports coordinator for MUFORA, Jenny Randalls, who is also UK editor for UFO Universe. The letter was dated December 3rd, just 2 days after the alleged experience. In a very matter-of-fact way, the writer recorded what he had seen and mentioned the taking of a photograph. and that his compass was now totally inaccurate. Jenny's address had been discovered in the back of a book, and even though he had signed the letter with his correct name, the address was a box number in Bristol, the town where his parents lived. At that point, he was wary of disclosing his full identity, but encouraged Jenny to reply for further information. At a meeting, we advised her to write up for further information, but the letter itself caused hardly a ripple amongst our members. Letters like this have been received in the past, promising photographic evidence. Almost always, these photographs turn out to be, in the case of UFOs, pictures of birds or aircraft seen at an unusual angle, or just crude hoaxes. Nevertheless, Jenny replied over the next few days, but was to wait a while before an answer. And as a researcher, I can sympathize with that. The amount of DMs I get with, whether it's today, now it's, many of it is rocket launches, Starlink satellites. Venus is still pretty popular, especially this month and next month. Folks, forewarned, expect a surge of sightings, but don't be fooled if a bright light during the day sort of hangs loomingly in the sky. It might very well be Venus? All right, it might very well be Venus. I think we call it Venus from now on if it's misattributed to a UFO. We'll just say that's Venus. Don't worry about it. Already, it seemed, Philip was regretting his decision for clandestine approach to his true whereabouts. He wanted to report the incident to people who investigated this type of phenomena, especially as his wife found trouble in reconciling her husband's honesty with such bizarre claims. It was just too incredible to be true, wasn't it? At the library, he consulted the directory of associations and there discovered the name of Arthur Tomlinson, a man who has studied the phenomenon for nearly 30 years. Philip phoned Arthur sometime towards the end of December, and he went across to Ilkley right away with flying saucer enthusiast Steve Ballon. The three men went up on the moor in the darkness, armed with flashlights, to visit the location. At Ballon's request, Philip had no qualms in handing over not just the print, but also the negative depicting the alleged green creature. Wow. Wow. Wonder where that negative is today. Probably still with some UFO researcher. If you have access to that negative, I would love to get, a print done. That would be, reach out to me.